Yes, indeedy. Setting everything up for the popping out of the chat and the stuffing and the speaking and the stoof and the yay. And then just gonna let people know. And let's go ahead and kick it into the camera. And welcome. Hey, hey, fuzzy butt. Oh, you're so kitty. I got snuggly little kitties. Anyway, yeah, I know there's probably not many people watching. So if anyone is actually watching right now, say hello, hi. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, don't forget the whole like and subscribe and bell icon. And hi, Kim. Hey, hunters. As usual, we are being sponsored by Anycubic because the Photon is easy mode for printing minis. Now, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm actually going to be working on one of the giants that I'm doing for my Kickstarter. And hello, Emilio! What I'm doing is I've got these giants. I've got several from myth and legend, whether it's Greek myth like Argus, Anglo-Saxon myth like Grendel from Beowulf, later period legend like Cormoran or Farragut, Japanese lore like Shootin' Doji. It's all over the world there are giants, and I'm going to be making them as STL printable files and including D&D stats for them, 5th ed. Kim, do I need to make you a mod? Nor me. Do I need to make you the first mate on this weird old ship of mine? I mean, you're plugging me almost as often as I plug myself. Anyway, one of the things I'm doing is I'm including a PDF that will include their basic story, game stats for 5th edition, overview of personality and gameplay, and adventure hooks. Since tonight is Grendel, I might as well go ahead and read off part of Grendel's little PDF. Oh, before I can do that, I have to do one other thing. Hold on a second here. I kind of forgot to switch to the actual account for, pop out chat. And ding. There we go. Alright. Add moderator. Okay, there you go. You're a mod now. But like I said, what I'm going to do is... Oh, apparently I've been asked for the link. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a little bit of what I included on Grendel's PDF. I'm not going to give the full shtick, the full schlemiel. And yeah, Kim, you'd be red if I could change the color, but I can't. Basically, the story is, Grendel... let's do this right. In the early days of the Kingdom of Denmark, King Hrothgar built a glorious mead hall named Herot. There, he and his warriors would drink, sing, and celebrate when the hurly-burly of the day was done. Everyone loved Herot, except Grendel. Grendel was descended of Cain, or so it was said, and was a monstrous thing. He hated men and their happiness,
and resolved to end their revels at Heorot. Every night, when the warriors of the hall had passed out from drink, or fallen asleep from weariness, he would sneak in and carry off one of the warriors and devour them. This happened for many long nights, and soon Heorot lay abandoned, and King Hrothgar despaired. Stories of this monster soon reached Beowulf the Geat, who immediately set forth for Denmark with his own men. He met Hrothgar at Heorot and declared he would slay Grendel. They feasted and sang and enjoyed the night, and then lay down as if to sleep. Sure enough, the enraged Grendel stole into the hall, but the Geat and his men were not asleep. Their blades and spears were turned aside by the beast's hide, but eventually Beowulf managed to grapple him, and he tore off Grendel's arm. The monster ran back into the moors, and was said by Beowulf to have died from his injuries. But what if he didn't? And I'm doing fine, Emilio. Basically, this will be, how can you include Grendel in a typical D&D campaign? How can you fit him into a typical fantasy world? And the answer is, take elements of the story and either elaborate on them or shift them to fit the world. For example, legendary version of Grendel is supposedly a descendant of Cain, and the mark of Cain is not a curse, but rather a shield to prevent others from killing Cain. So, for Grendel, it manifests as weapons and spears turn aside on his skin. So for this D&D-ized Grendel, yes, he's half troll, half giant, but he's got fiendish blood, which gives him resistance to edged, piercing, and slashing weapons. Piercing and slashing weapons, not from bludgeoning, but from piercing and slashing, that are non-magical. And it also allows him to regenerate even after being exposed to fire, but his regeneration stops when he's at half damage. And if he loses a limb, it doesn't take days to grow back, it takes months. It still grows back, but it takes a while. Which leads into how I represent Grendel. The arm that was torn off is still growing back, so it's long and spindly with talon-like fingers. The other arm is large and massive and bludgeoning, and his feet are lumpy, and he's got trollish cast to his giant features. And hello, Mark. So, another thing to remember is, yes, he would be 17 feet tall, but he's sneaky. He has bonus to sneak, and he does everything he can to take advantage of that, waiting for his opponents to be asleep, crouching as low to the ground as possible, and moving as slowly as possible. Every possible advantage he can for stealth. And then he's just got the fact that he's 17 feet tall. He would be if he could uncurl his spine. So, that is the basics for good old Grendel. Now, we are going to ZBrush. And I'm going to show you the basics of what I've been doing for Grendel. Grendel base. Grendel sculpt, there we go. This is straight out of Daz Studio for his pose. The head will be heavily edited. I've also done his clothing. The clothing was done in a cloth simulation, so the wrinkles are where they would be. I'm just going to exaggerate them when it comes time. I also have a base, but I'm not going to load it because I've still got a lot of work to do on it, adding stuff to it. Like, in the case of... Oh, fuck me running.
Where did his club go? And his club broke. Where did it go? I have a hard time spotting it under the shadow of my chair and that. Oh, and worst of all, it's in chunks. There's chunks that broke off and flew off. So yeah, my wonderful, beautiful sculpt of Polyphemus the Cyclops shattered and is useless. There's his club. Oh, fuck me running. Yes, resin. We're talking parts of it this small broke off. And I'm not certain I found everything. I could theoretically repair it, but there would be very clear gaps. There would be very clear cracks in it. Oh, fuck. Anyway, I'll worry about it tomorrow. Again, it can be glued, but there would be very clear cracks. But I was wanting to mention how on his base there's, like, you know, the broken pillar and the rock and that. Oh, fuck me running. Now, to be fair, I have indoor-outdoor carpet and it's hard, and it's on top of a concrete floor. So this would not normally have impacted quite as hard, as nastily. But, yeah. And it fell from about 3.5 feet. Now the thing to remember is, as you can see here, well, as you can't see here right now, let me pull up my camera controls. The resin is hollowed, which makes it a lot more fragile. To be exact, it's in 1.5 or 1.8 millimeters thick. But yeah, Odysseus got his revenge. Yay. So anyway, yeah, that happened. Okay, let's go ahead and... What? Okay. Let's go ahead and pull up the ZBrush again. I can always go back in and fix that. I've got the good photographs that are going to be used in the advertising and stuff, so it's just in person, it's fractured. Alright, so, Grendel. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to start working on his head. And I'm going to do it before I Dynamesh it, because I want to affect his expression as well as the overall shape of his head, among other things. So,
first thing we're doing is we're going from the brush to the move brush. Move topological. I'm also going to click this button right here. I don't know if it's in ZBrush Core or not, but it remembers the size of the brush on a per brush basis. So if I move this down to 18, go over to inflate, and go up to 207, well, when I go back to move, it's back down to 18. Now, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start drawing out the mouth a bit wider and drawing down the lips and up the lips. Doesn't look right now, but it will when I'm done, because what's going to end up happening is I'm going to be, whoop, I didn't want to move a tooth down. What's going to end up happening is it's going to get smoothed. Alright, now we're going to pull up one side. I'm now going to shrink the mouse and reduce intensity a little bit and smooth out this side and this side. Now I'm going to kind of pull up a bit and back a bit more and back a bit more. Smooth, well, let's shrink this and smooth the connection here. Then I'm going to move the center of the lip up a bit. The next thing I'm going to do, well, first of all I need to move this. I'm going to a regular move brush, make it a little bit bigger, and make the mouth overall wider. Yes, he's eventually going to have that tongue filled in. Speaking of the tongue, let's go back to topological. Grab the front of the tongue and pull it out. Grab the side of the tongue and pull it out. Yeah, I'm gonna give him a nasty tongue. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually going down to the polygroup section and I'm going to auto group. The reason being is this way I can work on the teeth alone. Each tooth is an individual group. Like, for example, I know I need to move this one up a bit more. Now we're going to give him sharper teeth. So I'm going to shrink this down to about a little bit larger than the top of the teeth. I'm just going to grab random teeth and pull them up and in random distances. But this will be mostly useful on resin printers. It won't be as visible. Oh, I'm just going out. It won't be as visible on an FDM printer unless you get really good detail with it. Now when I make it visible,
It's a lot more of a fearsome grin. I also need to make the gums need to move a little, especially on the side here. Now, I also need to... I'm going to use inflate to do this only because I know I'm going to be using Dynamesh here in a little bit. I'm going to blend the back of the head with the back of the neck. Going to be a lot more ape-like than your typical giant. Then I'm going to regular move, and I'm going to make it much bigger and pull up that hunch. Okay. Now, we know he's got troll blood. So let's go ahead and using move topological, I know it's still going to grab some of it. We're going to make those ears a little bit larger and pointier. We're going to go back in a minute with the inflate brush on them to make them a little bit thicker. Okay. Inflate. I'm going to shrink this. I'm going to kind of just slowly make it a little bit thicker, especially up top. Whoop. And a little bit of smoothing just because that got too thick. A lot of the detailing on this ear is going to be much later. And you also got to pull that out like that. We're going to exaggerate the brow a bit. We're going to, again, a lot of the detail in that is going to come later. And we're going to exaggerate the cheekbone. Almost orcish in overall appearance, but okay. Now, move topological. Pull down one brow, pull up the corner, and pull down the entirety of this brow. Let's go ahead and expose the gum line there. Now, you need to kind of bring the whole cheek in, because most people's mouths don't flap that far open when they open them. Then we're going to grab the bottom of the chin and pull down. It's not so much orcish as trollish, so we want to kind of make him more like a troll than an orc. And he's not entirely trollish, he's just troll-blooded. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and Dynamesh him. I think that's a nice basic shape for the destroyer of hair, the ravager of hair. And no, I take that back. Make this a little bit bigger. I need to move this hunch over.
add to the slightly off-balance feel. There we go. So now I go up to geometry and I subdivide him until he's about, yeah, 5 million polygons. That's enough that even in the areas we were working, they look smooth. And then we're going to Dynamesh 1024. No blur. Dynamesh. And it's now at 1057 polys. And just to do so, we're going to take this, we're going to subdivide it a couple times until it's, yeah, 1.1. We're going to Dynamesh it. No, we're not going to Dynamesh it yet. One thing I need to do, shrink the mouse and bring it all the way back up. I need to fix this spot right here. When I did the cloth sim, it it wrinkled on itself there. Now, before I start carving on Grendel's actual skin and detailing, I'm going to add one thing. I'm going to add a rope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rope brush. It's a brush that I've discovered a while back that someone had, and I downloaded it, and I got a stroke. I believe I paid for it too. We're going to turn curve mode on, curve functions, frame mesh. No, it's not detecting it. Okay, so first things first, just to test on it, how big is it going to be? That'll be about right. So, we're going to start over here. We're going to just kind of draw just below the top edge of his little loincloth. You see we now have a rope there. If I move it, you see how a red line appears. That means it's going to continue this through. And it's still one line. It's just continuing through. Then there's that red line. Continue on. Before I let go, it smooths out the line a little bit. And now there. And I have a rope. Now it's a single continuous rope with no detailing, but that's okay. I now just tap once and it gets rid of the curve. I then come down here to split masked parts. That moves the whole cloth down. Now I'm going to add in another rope and another rope. What that's for is those ropes are going to get stuck underneath a big old skull buckle. Actually, let me go ahead and split unmasked parts. Split unmasked parts. Now we're going to shift him up. And we're going to drop these. We're going to merge all three of these together. Merge down, merge down. And now I'm changing brushes again. We've got our little skull. We're going to check it. Make sure that the depth is 0. We're going to kind of draw. Alright, 0 is not a good depth. What if we start here? No. Let's try it. No. See, the problem is I got to find just the right angle. Actually, let's see what happens if we bring it back to 42 or 53 and draw it here. No, because the angle's wrong still. So we need to draw it embed of 0 on the rope, and I got to find just the right spot to draw it. Like, say, right on that one. There we go. And we frame out. Yeah. We've got effectively a belt buckle, so to speak, for him that is shaped like a skull. We're already starting to make some progress. Now we're going to go back to here. Going to hide this, and we need to make this a little bit raggedy. So what's going to happen is, first, there's a brush called the Trim Lasso. And what we do with this, let's shrink down the brush. We're going to draw a chunk that, oh, it helps if I hold the stylus in the right direction. We're going to draw a chunk, Control Shift, and as it calculates, slicing the mesh. Oh, that didn't work. Alright, how about this? Let's frame, zoom out, and rotate a little bit. We're going to hide. We're going to select those. We go to visibility. Everything that is not masked gets hidden. There. Now, we're going to zoom in. Control Shift, and now we're going to try it. It's calculating, and it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Let's make it all visible. Let's try it again. Okay, that time it worked. And over on this side. Now, I've learned that you gotta kind of go counterclockwise with some of these. Some of these weird lasso selection brushes. Yeah, there we go. And then one little bit for the bottom. Now that one didn't do so much, but hey, it's better than nothing. As long as I've got a relatively erratic, irregular seam at the on this thing. And as long as I don't cause it to lock up, which I just might have. Okay, there we go. And then over here. Whoop. See, if I do it like that, it's been leaving me with nothing but that little tiny piece that I just circled, because I went clockwise instead of counterclockwise. See? Hit Control Z. And Control Shift. Yep. Thank you, Andy. And so now that I've got the basic, the bottom of it looking kind of ragged, we got to add some apparent holes in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch to the standard brush and close out that. We're going to stroke and turning off lazy mouse, switching to drag rectangle. Now I'm going to an alpha that I've made in the past. I've used it on, well, I used it on Polyphemus. Alphas. And I've got these various ones down at the bottom here. For example, this one. And what I do is I simply click and drag. Alright, that's an add. I don't want an add. So I'm going to sub, and I'm increasing it quite a bit. There's going to be a bit of a hole there. No, not good. Number one, I need to come in here, auto masking, backface mask. That way whatever's behind it won't do it. And I'm going to go down here. I'm going to draw in that. Then a very quick, very careful, smooth. Just enough. It's quite clear that that's a hole. If I made Grendel visible, it's kind of down there. We're going to put something else kind of along here. So we're going to use a different one. We're going to use one that's a bit more erratic shaped. No. Too deep. Let's undeep that. Yeah, there we go. Now let's go ahead and hide them again. And now what we're going to do here, remember those stitch brushes? Yeah, we're going to use them to make this into kind of an erratic stitched together mess. So we're going to start with seam 25. And we're going to increase the intensity to about 30. And we're going to draw it on right here. Actually, that's too big. So let's shrink it. And here. So that he's got a seam there. But now we got to add patches. We're going to add patches with number 21. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to increase the lazy mouse a bit, and we're going to draw in, like say up here, stretch in. Alright, that's too light and too small. We want this visible from a distance. So we're going to draw in up here. And then down here. And then down this way. and back up to here. And we have a patch. Nice and simple, nice and quick. We're going to draw one over here, but it's going to come from the edge. Draw here, and then down, and then over. And then we're going to draw another one coming from here, down like that. And then one more from here coming up, like that. So that we have ourselves kind of an erratic slapdash, barely sewn together mess of a loincloth. This is going to go into the hole and then down this way. Also, one last one from this corner. There. Now we have some rough slapdash. We make the rope and him visible. And it's very clearly looking almost like a sackcloth loincloth. Some of these are paid brushes, but by paid I mean the seam brushes that I'm just doing, $4 for 35 seam brushes. I took the ones that I'd probably use most often and put them into my load order, but the rest, I mean, it's $4. I think that's pretty much all we need to do for his loincloth, really and truly. So I'm going to go ahead. It's time to start on Grendel himself. And just so I don't cheat, we're going to do Grendel without. Alright, first things first, we need to kind of smooth around there, because we've fused his head in like that by bending it badly and swelling it. So there. Yeah, if he could uncurl his spine, he'd be 17 feet. Speaking of, let me pop over here real quick just so I can hide what I'm doing. I made a prop a while back. I'm probably going to throw up online. A prop that's intention is for 32mm scale, each mark is a foot, and each large mark is 5 feet. Yeah, I made one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to load it in. I have never taken a ZBrush course in my life. Everything I've has been over the past 11 or so years of using it, combined with occasional online tutorials and things like that, and a lot of use. Just sculpting constantly. Oh, I moved it over here. Also, some of you may recognize that I'm not using this one anymore for my vape. It died. This is the new one. Yay! Black and red. It's always good. Even better than Iron Man colors. And file export. Yeah, you can't really see what I'm doing right now, thankfully. Alright, just to show you what's going on. Go go ahead and go back to here. Now I'm going to append another polymesh and import. Let's see, that would be under so legend Grendel height. To unused 3D. As you can see, let me go ahead and move it over slightly. As things stand, so to speak, he's just under 12 feet to the top of his head. If he could stand upright, with his legs stretched out, he would be about here. Your typical miniature will be here. And again, just to show a typical miniature, let's go to that Viking. He's in a moderately standing pose. And offset him. There's Beowulf. For a nice little size comparison. Blah! Rah, 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 rah. So, if he could stand up straight, he'd be 17 feet tall. As it is, he's only about 12. If he stood up, if he straightened his legs, he'd probably be closer to 14 or 15 feet. Go back to ZBrush. And let's go ahead and remove the Nordic Warrior. Actually, let's leave him seen just long enough. We're going to scroll out. So this will be, that's about how big the detail would be when we print him. So this is about the size we want Grendel on screen when we go to actually look to see if his details will mesh. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in some detail on his face. And we're going to start by using the Orbs Crack brush. We're going to turn off Lazy Mouse, and we're going to reduce the brush size, and we're just going to emphasize the border of his eyes. Okay? So, well, it's still too big. Let's drop it down to about 7, yeah. And we're just drawing around the edge of the eye to emphasize that. Now, we're going to start drawing in wrinkly bits. We're going to use the slash brush for this because with the slash brush, let me once again turn off Lazy Mouse, bring it down to about 14. When I draw in, well, let's make it bigger just to show. When I draw in, it has a rounded cross-section where it meets the remainder of the flesh, whereas Orb Cracks has an angled one. So we're going to use slash to draw in our wrinkles and other details. And once again, we're going to smooth the ends of them very gently. Because they fade, they don't suddenly stop. Let's drop the smoothing down to about, yeah. And we're going to emphasize the depth here. We're going to also do something similar here. We're going to come under and once again we're going to smooth out the ends of these wrinkles. Now we're going to make them a lot larger. So the first thing that we're going to do is come around from the nostril around here. Once again, we're going to smooth out just a little at the bottom. We're then going to make it smaller, and we're going to emphasize that little wrinkle right there, as weird as it is. And smooth out. We're going to do something similar here. Now, one thing to remember is he is supposed to be somewhat demonic. So we're going to give him some slightly unnatural features. Not just trollish, but demonic trollish. Just going to curl under. Actually, let's... Okay, never mind. We're going to curl under the chin, under the lip there. We're going to drop the intensity quite a bit and continue that under lip. Under here. We're going to smooth it a little bit. Just to make sure that we can get it looking good. And we're also going to go ahead and connect under here, just to slash under here, just to emphasize the division. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and use orb cracks, just because I don't want to drag the rest of the geometry of the mouth into the separator. Head is getting more and more monstrous, which is good. Now we're going to add in some, where was it? Slash some forehead wrinkles. Actually, need to make it a little bit deeper, so it's, and very light over here. We're going to smooth out the ends. Once again, I'm going to kind of dig a little bit deeper on here. Now the next thing we're going to do is D&D trolls, because this is based on D&D, have really big noses, really long, skinny noses. He's got a small one. He doesn't look so much trollish as almost vampiric. So we're going to go ahead and go to Move Topological. I'm going to zoom in on as side of view as we can get, Make that mouse a little bit bigger. Start pulling out the nose and pulling it up to really emphasize the size of it. Now we can go ahead and make it bigger. Down. Now, we're now going to shrink it and pull out the nostrils. Looking underneath, looks moderately symmetrical. That's still too thin, so we're going to go ahead and grab this whole bridge and pull it out. Yeah, there we go. And then we're going to use inflate, much lower tier, and just slowly start to inflate the side of the nose. Oh dear, his nose is bent. So we go back to move. We're going to move the tip over, and this over, and this over. Okay. Now the reason why I'm having him with one really skinny arm and one thick arm, if you missed the intro, he can regenerate like a troll, but if he gets below his half his hit points, it starts taking a lot longer. So his arm is mostly grown back, but not entirely. Now we're going to dig in here. We're then going to go to add and very lightly add on a ridge here. Just a little bit of smoothing. I'm going to do the same over here. We're going to dig under where that this little wrinkle is, and then add on a very faint ridge here. Then we're going back to subtract and draw on just the rough basic details of an ear. Then we go to inflate. We're going to shrink it down quite a bit and inflate this right here, just this. And then we're going to smooth out to this side so that it'll overlap a bit. And the same thing over here. And we have our basic ear shape. Now we're going to make the mouse a lot larger, and we're going to kind of emphasize the corner of his jaw a bit. He needs to have a powerful jaw for munching on Danes and Geats. Because yes, Beowulf did lose some of his men in that whole brouhaha. Some of the Geats did get eat. Yes, that was a deliberate joke, a deliberate rhyme. Let's smooth that. Yeah, there we go. Now let's go ahead and give him a little bit more under. A little bit more of a mandible. Alright. Also a little bit more of a chin. Once again, D&D trolls tend to have really large chins. They tend to be not quite as human looking as this guy, but that's also because this guy is part giant. And if we can get him to kind of look like Darkness from Legend, that'd be even better because of the whole fiendish blood. So that's our head. We need to add on a few imperfections right now, but we're going to do that actually later because... Well, let me go ahead and close this. The reason we're going to do it later is because we need a little bit more geometry in some of the areas that we've stretched out, like his nose. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start adding in some anatomy, just the basic, you know, at increasing the deltoid on this arm because he kind of needs it, and smoothing it all out. Add mass first, then add your detail lines. If you were sculpting for a much more more detailed level, we actually wouldn't be sculpting on this level of resolution. We'd actually be sculpting at a much lower resolution first. The reason being is you want to take your forms first, your masses. Like this muscle here. See, he's got a strong pectoral area on this side, equal to what he's got on the other side, but a much smaller, less massive arm over there. So he needs to have an intermediate deltoid. We also need to kind of stretch this pec because it's stretching forward since his collar is moving forward. We're not going to give all of his volume right now. The reason being is, I'll show you in a minute. But like right now, we can see that he's got rather large deltoid on this side. And he needs a very large back muscle connecting it, connecting to the arm in general. He's going to be much bulkier on this side. You'll also notice that by inflating, I'm getting an overlap here. I will fuse. Now, I'm going to pull that in. Again, we're drawing this to basic masses where the muscles would be. Any detail work will come later. You can already see how much more massive that arm is now. It's making it much more exaggerated. And then we're going to have a bulge here from that forearm muscle. We're going to have the elbow here, and it's going to come out a bit. We're just going to draw a general mass for the smaller forearm muscles. We're also going to add in rather large wrist bones. Once again, this is just your general masses. This is not the full detail for that musculature. His back, well, he's got the hunch here, but we're still going to add in some basic back shapes. They'll just be warped and twisted. And as for his neck, we're going to increase the neck on this side, but not so much on the other. We're going to add in these little lines from his back. Now over here, we're going to deflate under here to come in, and then inflate here to kind of emphasize the rib cage and what are called the serratus muscles. We're also going to go ahead and blend all this together. If we need to, we're going to be tweaking the... Okay, now, we're not going to add too much mass to this arm, except over here, along the back a little. We are going to reduce mass right here, because that's where it's going to be bending, and the muscle behaves differently on a bend than the rigging does. So we're still going to add in some significant wrist bones. But nothing like what we had over there. I'm gonna draw this in because this is going to be some tendons, wrist tendons. Frame out. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the legs. We're going to give them kind of cartoony legs in terms of where the muscles are. Right, that's not enough. Let's make it bigger. Like that one muscle that's right on the inside front of the knee. It's going to be kind of big because he's constantly crouching. So when he stands up straight for a leaping jump, this is what lets him jump. Then you got your muscle that's on the top center, and then you got your outer thigh muscles. Once again, we're going to actually do the division and detailing of the muscles later. Also, some of what I just did will end up being covered by the loincloth. Now on the calves, his calves are going to need to be pretty sharply defined when it comes down to it. So we're going to go ahead and give him some decent mass in these calves. We're also going to draw in significant ankles. That sounds like a bad band name. Hi, we're significant ankles. We're a joint Queen and Iron Maiden tribute band. How are you doing, Cleveland? Yay. Now for the knees, what we're going to do, we're actually going to polish the front. We go to P up here, and there's polish. And we're going to go to subtract. The reason being is we want to flatten the knees mostly. So we're just going to start drawing on the front of the knees. And by doing so, we're going to end up with a relatively flat front end to them. Then we're going back to inflate, and we're gonna, with a much larger brush, we're going to kind of very faintly inflate that front end that we just flattened. And the smaller, we're going to kind of draw down the side and the top. Now, looks like we're just kind of doing something weird there, but that's because there's the fact that the inside calf muscle have a tendency to slide underneath the front shin bone. So by kind of blending it in like this, coming out like that, we can make that effect. Okay, frame out. We got most of his mass done. We're now going to dynamesh him. Dynamesh. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to smooth out these little seams that we got by overlapping masses. This seam we're not going to smooth out because its body parts overlapping. But here we are. Zoom out, and then like right here along this tricep, we're going to smooth out that. Along here, along the neck, we're going to smooth out that. On these muscles here, we're going to smooth them out. Now it's framing. Yeah. We got most of his mass taken care of. A lot more intimidating with all that musculature, and we can already see we're going to need to tweak a few things. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to merge the loincloth with the belt just so that I can use the move tool and move them both simultaneously. There's other ways to do it, but this way is best for me. So we're going to come up here, and we're going to hit transparency, grab in here and pull forward. Turn off transparency. Did I get it all? Yeah, I did. And for the most part, that looks like the only thing I really need to take care of with that. Little surface detailies. Well, I'm going to shrink this. Actually, we're going to give a little bit of smoothing because when we did that dynamesh, some of these were so exaggerated that they still left their mark. There. Just enough to kind of smooth it just a little bit. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add on warts. Because, I mean, come on, he's a troll, he's got issues, he's going to have a wart. Or 50. So first things first, a big old wart on the nose. One on the cheek. One on a different spot on this cheek.
We don't want them to be symmetrical in any way, shape, or form. Now, time to start using the slash brush for making these separations between the muscles. And I'm going to make sure I have that turned off. Okay. Now the first thing that's going to happen... Oh, I missed a smooth. There we go. We're going to come under the pec down here, just to make sure. This will give us an area where you can test how deeply we're cutting, while at the same time someplace that needs it pretty deep. And then here, and then just a very faint there. Now, we're going to go ahead and draw in some of those pectoral wrinkles that you occasionally see on like a bodybuilder. Oh no. I forgot about one aspect of the Christmas season I can't stand that will be tormenting me for the next month. My mother adores every possible variation of A Christmas Carol. Alright, so we're going to start from back here. We're going to draw down, and then we're going to draw here. We're drawing in our neck muscles. Drawing back here, but at the same time kind of crossing over from both. And then we're going to smooth it a little. Drawing there, and drawing here. Now, we're also going to go ahead and draw a separator between the deltoids here and here. And then we're going to hit smooth just a little bit. And one here. Now, we're going to come up from here and go down. This is his bicep on this on the Winky Inky arm. And a little bit of smoothing. Just a little bit of smoothing. Now, we're going to draw in the under rib cage bit and kind of come under and come under.
Then we're going to draw the serratus muscles over here. We're going to start with the larger rear, actually, make this a little bit bigger. Larger ones that are more to the rear of the rib cage area. And then they look like ribs on first glance, and a lot of people think they are ribs. It's actually a muscle group called the serratus that helps your diaphragm expand and retract. It helps in your breathing. It's already looking better on the torso, and then let's give him a little bit more of a detail at the top of his pec there. And now it's time for the other arm. So we're going to go ahead and come through this way and come around from here this way, and then we're going to come on there like that. We're going to come around like that, and come around like this. Now, the one advantage of doing an unnatural creature like a troll or a monster is you don't have to be exactly right on the anatomy. The problem is, doing it exactly right makes it look more realistic. Maybe not like a real troll, but more like an actual living thing with anatomy that is based on the same thing that ours is. So trying to get at least a vague similarity is a very good thing. So trying to get it similar. Verisimilitude, I guess, would be the best way to put it. And we're gonna there. Alright. Get on over. You heard me, Shinju. Get over. Fuzzbutt. Will you get over here, please? I've got a cat standing on some of my stuff, and she wants to be lifted and carried over rather than jump the 1.5 feet. That she could jump in her sleep from a standing start without even trying. Okay. We're not going to add too much detail more to the abdomen because, in fact, we're going to take away some of this. And we're going to go on to the back. We're going to smooth that just a little. We're going to come under. Actually, no, we're going to make the mouse bigger first. And then come under that. And do the same thing over here. And then smooth out that area. Gonna come under this way. And come back like that. Come under this way. And back like that. And then shrink the mouse and smooth out those areas, because while there are divisions there, they're usually not as intense unless you're a full-on professional bodybuilder. And something tells me that while his body does build itself, I don't think Grendel is a professional bodybuilder. Let's frame out. Okay. We need to add some detail to his musculature in his arm, since now that we can. Let's refine that separator. We want the bicep to be distinct, because it's one of the most recognizable muscles in the body. And then we're going to come in from here and from here. And we're going to smooth that out. We're going to come back in a minute with inflate. So don't worry too much about the weird shape here. Then I'm going to come in under, there, and around there, and smooth out our tops. Once again, since this is not as defined, it's, well, since this is, regrowing, it's not going to be as defined as the original. Now we're going to inflate again, and we're going to make it much bigger. I'm going to inflate in here and in here, and then smooth it. We're going to change our angle, and we need to make it much more inflated overall in this area. Yeah, that's better. Frame out, and except for the hands, the upper torso is pretty much done for well, hands and warts. The upper torso is pretty much done. So now we go from here to slash again. And I'm going to take a brief pause and look at the chat to get some soda. Oh, Kim, it's worse than just all versions every year. It's all versions repeatedly every year. The Jim Carrey animated version, the Patrick Stewart version, all of them dating back to the 30s version. What's worse, the worst of them, are the versions done by the freaking Hallmark Channel, where it's like, it's a top music star rising through the charts, and oh look, she gets her own version of A Christmas Carol. Hey look, it's a businesswoman who wants to buy land in this little small town, and she's gonna get a Christmas Carol. You get a Christmas Carol, and you get a Christmas, and everybody gets a Christmas Carol. Ah! Hey. Yeah, it's not Christmas until you see Hans Gruber falling off Nakatomi Plaza. Hey. Come here. Shinju. Beep. Beep. Yeah, there we go. Kitty kisses. This is a sweet, lovey kitty. Oh, she's so feral, isn't she? Yeah, she's so feral. And you probably couldn't see that. Anyway, real quick, let me... I just had to poke my head in over here real quick. Yeah, so... One thing I should notice is I usually have to turn it from automatic to straight up to 440p. Okay. I have most of his upper torso. It's now time to start working on his legs. And once I get his leg detailing done, then I'm going to also go ahead and do and just start working on like an occasional scar or the like. Okay, so first of all, let's kind of carve in here. And A little bit smoothing right there. We're going to cut in deeper on the separation between the calf and the thigh here. I'm going to come under and come up this way and smooth it to help define. I think Mom's watching body cam or something, like one of those things where it's the cops with the body camera and the cameras following them around. I don't know why she loves those shows. Even though they claim to be live, they're very clearly edited. You know? If they're live, then when the people cuss, you'd hear them cuss. Alright, so we're going to come under there and under there. Then I'm going to hit Alt and draw there. Then smooth out the whole thing. And hit 1 a couple times. Okay, then I'm going to kind of exaggerate that little line. As you can see, the right calf is a bit more defined than the left now, because we did that cut under, a cut over, and a smooth. And then, yeah, and then we're going to follow this little line here and smooth it. Frame. Yeah, that's pretty much his body and arms and legs done. And we're looking at 9:30. I should have enough time to get his hands done. And then we would be doing further warts and slashes on his body. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start working on his taloned hand. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to inflate. We're going to shrink down to the size of his fingers. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Zoom in. And then we're going to inflate the base of this finger, base of that finger, the base of this finger, and the base of this finger. We're going to turn down the intensity, and we're going to come and draw on those infamous tendons. Then shift, and we're going to smooth it. Yeah. But right about here, we're going to very carefully draw it on twice more, because when you bend your hand like that, you can't see it, but there's a couple tendons that are continuing along. Now, make that 12. We're going to draw on the outer knuckles on all the fingers. And yes, you can tell this is not my usual base figure because the fingers are separated. We're then going to increase the size of our brush. We're going to inflate at the base of the thumb, inflate at the base of the hand, smooth it a little bit, and inflate at the base of the fingers. We're then going to deflate in here and along here. Then we're going to inflate the joint here, and right here, just enough to give it. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the slash tool,
but not for what you might think. Since we don't have to dig in between these joints, what we're going to be using them for, between the fingers, is we're going to use them on the inside base of each finger, and on the inside of each bend. Oh, because that's okay. We're gonna make this one a bit higher. Okay. Then we're going to go back to inflate. And leaving it here, we're going to drop the intensity a bit. We're going to kind of inflate the base of each finger, because they're getting a little scrawny there at the base of each finger, and we want it to be a little bit thicker. The pinky's going to get a little bit of inflation. Not a lot, until the ring, mostly on the inside. Now we're going to use the move tool. We're going to take, or actually move topological, because we want these to be done differently. We're going to go to each finger, we're going to grab the tip, we're going to pull it in, and then smooth it. That'll end up doing is it'll end up pretty much sharpening it into almost a talon like we want it. Oh, no, that didn't do well because I bent them I pulled them sideways. So, grab, drag, grab, drag, grab, drag, and grab, drag, and then once again, smoothing it will sharpen these. Okay. Now we're going to use the inflate tool, shrunken down a bit more and a little bit higher, to add on the border of these talons. Just a little on each side of the talon. We're then going to be going in and sharpening, so to speak, the divisor between these talons and the fingers with our slash brush. Where did it go? There it is. I've used so many brushes. We're going to reduce the intensity and reduce the size. And we're just going to kind of draw around here to make it clear that these are talons and not just really long fingers. For all we know, these could actually be the bones of his finger that have ripped through his hands because of the way because of a bad regen. You know, bad regeneration. You never know, it could happen. That's another thing I did, is because Grendel, as I defined him, has some fiendish blood, he does not gain resistance to fire, but rather fire does not stop his regeneration. Acid does. On top of which, his regeneration actually does stop if he gets hurt too badly, like, I don't know, has a arm torn off.
Where a troll will regrow a limb overnight, Grendel takes a few months. Yeah. So, we're going to go ahead. Now, this hand is a more traditional giant-y hand. It does not have the talons or any of that his regular hand has. So we go back to inflate, make the mouse a little bit bigger. We're going to draw on our base knuckles. One here, one here, one here. And then we're going to draw those infamous tendons. Yes, infamous. And we're going to smooth them up here. And then hit 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're going to add on knuckles here, and here, and here, and here. We're going to swell this out because a poorly twisted finger ended up fusing with the other finger. Okay, and then I'm going to use the slash brush to cut in between them. Now, a bit of dynameshing. And I smooth out here. And once again, draw full power. Actually, no, because that's... There. Now the last thing we're going to do is his thumbnails and toenails. Unlike a normal sized figure, this guy's big enough that his thumbnails and toenails are visible and paintable. So, I'm going to grab around here. Just drawing it on. Then, holding down Alt, draw here. And smooth it just a little. And there we have his thumbnail. Just nice and simple. We're going to do the same thing here with all these toes. I'm going to draw on an oblong vague shape. And then Alt to make it positive and a smooth. Alt, make it positive. By brushing very lightly, I don't need to hit smooth every time. And we have toenails. And then on the other foot. Toenails on the other foot now, yay! I'm going to start off with him because and then just like I said, oblong shape. Oblong shape. Oblong shape. Alt to draw on the front of the nail. And now we can make some fancy detailing on Grendel. I'll take a brief pause here. Well, good night, Kim.
What do you think of him so far? Yes, Grendel, Savager of the Geats. Now the way we're going to make like scars and things like that, we're going to make very simple slashy scars. He really shouldn't have too many. He is trollish after all. He might have a few from wounds that he took that he never fully healed because they were too deep. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the orb crack brush. I'm just going to... No, that's too fast. No. Make it smaller. We're going to dig a crack in. And then we're going to smooth out the ends. So he's got a nice wound in the side muscle on that leg. Now all that's left is some more warts, just for the sake of adding some further little details. So a big one over here, one on the arm over here. Now the way I'm doing this is I'm just like, let's say right here, I'll draw on a little bit with inflate, and I'll hit the number 1 until it's nice and bulgy, which is usually 2 or 3 times. And then one over here. Now, it happens for some reason. It seems to be a thing where you've got 1, you got 2, but you don't do that everywhere. Otherwise, it doesn't look right. It looks like it's always a pair, and just a few warts here and there, and then maybe one over here. And we have Grendel. The basic, the actual form of Grendel is done. So now what we're going to do, since it's already 10 till, we're going to go ahead and we're going to merge down. So it's all one model. And we're going to Dynamesh the whole thing. Now I tell you, one thing that oh, I better not have. Okay, I already did, never mind. One thing I am going to do is I am going to be chopping him up for printing. What it'll probably be is it will probably be like a cut right along here, a cut right along here, and a cut right here. So that the upper torso and head are one piece, the legs and lower torso are another, and each arm is a piece. Simply because, now I might actually, instead, because he's moderately small, just cut off this arm. Because he shouldn't be too difficult to fit into a resin printer. His base might be, but he won't be. Now, he's currently at 1.325 million polygons. That's too big even for an STL for a Kickstarter. My brain went. So what we're going to do is we're going to Decimation Master, and we're going to turn him into 150,000 triangles. Wish me luck, let's hope it works this time. Click.
And it looks like it's doing great. Excellent. So we want 150,000 is more than likely, so about 12% of the current status. So that's not too hard. And we get 150,251. And it's still quite visible, quite distinct. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to export this guy back into Titans of Legend, Grendel, new folder, files. Grendel One Piece. And just to show you what I had planned for his base, let's go ahead and append Polymesh 3D, import Grendel base. Right now, it's mostly cracked earth. The reason for this is he lives in a swamp. I'm going to be using this cracked earth as a basis to make a little swamp around him. Also, to show you how large he'll be compared to Polyphemus, let's go ahead and load in Polyphemus. Polyphemus full figure. Let's go ahead and deformation, rotate around Y, and offset X. Whoa, 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 that was way too far. Yeah, as you can see, he's still quite clearly a giant. But he's not quite as large as Polyphemus. They would be nearly the same height if Grendel could stand, but he can't. And as a miniature, he's not quite as large because he doesn't have that massive club that Polyphemus has. Let's go ahead and remove these two subtools. And just to make everything kind of cool, we're going to make a movie. We're going to turn the title image in and out off. Overlay image opacity to 0. Modifiers playback frames per second to the same point at recording are. And document large. Then we hit turntable. And as you can see, it's spinning him around. Right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby. Right round, round, round. And then we're going to export into Grendel as Grendel turn. And it'll sit there and render each frame and save them. 180 frames for turning around at 24 frames a second. A little over 6 seconds. Okay. So we actually got more done than I expected at all. So that was Grendel. That is the first of the core models that's going to be in my little Kickstarter of giants. The plan is, I don't even have a title yet. I've been working on this since before Danny's Dragon Kickstarter went live. But I had a bit of a problem with my concept artist, and I've decided, screw concept art. I know what I want in my head. And I want to try and keep a similar style in general. So let's go. The smaller giants like Grendel won't have as many fiddly bits on them,
But when you get up to things like, Argus, who's 25 feet tall, huge. He's going to have a lot of little dingly bits. The first tier of the Kickstarter, 3 giants. I haven't decided which ones yet. Second tier is the base 5 giants. Grendel, Argus, the Basajan of Basque mythology, Farragut from the Horn of Roland, and Cormoran, an old British legend. After that, there'll be stretch goals. Polyphemus is a stretch goal. Let me make sure I'm getting all of this right. Polyphemus, the Shuten Doji, an immense Oni from Japanese lore. Utgard Loki, one of the Frost Giant kings, and one who tricked Thor and Loki pretty severely. And finally, Okeanos, a titan, a full titan of the sea. Think 1 part blue whale, 3 parts titan. Big guy. Brr. Beefy. 5 of them are on the core. If the minimum is 3 of the first 3. If you have the minimum stretch goals, will include the first and the third stretch goal giants, which are Polyphemus and Utgard Loki. It's 5 for the base on the full pledge, with all 4 stretch goals, and potential for even more stretch goals, because I actually made a list. And yes, one of the stretch goals is Grendel's mother. Where is that list? Yeah, here it is. Other giants that I have as possibilities. Gar Madoc. Imagine a Celtic giant with kilt and somewhat demonic aspects. Balor. Balor of the Single Eye, the Fomorian demon Cyclops king of Irish mythology. Geryon, an old Greek myth that has 3 heads and a snake-like lower body. Talos, the bronze giant golem. Hyperion, another titan, the solar titan. Ymir, the ice titan and father of all frost giants. Crooked Mick. Some of you Aussies might enjoy this one. It's from Australian folklore. 1800s garb, one leg kind of gnarled. Iron Anne, a giant hag. And this one this will take forever. Gyges, one of the Hecatonchires, 100-handed giants. Obviously he won't have 100 hands, but he'll have a lot of arms. A lot of arms. And 4 heads, I think. Yeah. Hecatonchires are going to be a pain. Not Angelina. See, the way I have it presented, Grendel's father is a mountain giant, an 18-foot tall mountain giant. His mother is half troll, half pit fiend. So imagine this female form that's half muscular, demonic, actually half Balor. Muscular and demonic type whatever demon, and half withered, iron band muscle, ugly troll with 1 torn wing. and the remnants of a dress. That's how I picture Grendel's mother. Not golden-skinned Angelina Jolie. No, no, no. Yeah, but see, I literally did my best to find giant legends from around the world. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to see if I can pull up PDF. It'll be too small for you to really see. Media file. Titans of Legend. I'm going to see if I can pull up Grendel's PDF. No, it won't do PDFs. Okay, add source. Media file. Let's see if it'll pull up the... No. Ah, there we go. This is an example of Grendel's PDF. Now, up at the top on the left is an overview of his story. Bottom left is his 5th edition stat block. Up here is some notes on how he integrates with a typical D&D world, and notes on how on his role playing and his tactics. And down here are a couple adventure hooks and ideas on how to get your players into conflict with the big guy. But something like that is included with every one of the giants. So, it is now 10:02. As I noted, I am far... I did not expect to get the full sculpt done in one show, let alone having enough time to sit there and discuss the project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and my usual method of signing off is I hold up my hand and I count from 5 to 1. The reason for this is the lag on YouTube. It's about a 10-second lag. So when I can see my hand go to 1, I know that, you know, anything after that is just me goofing off, being all Ghibli in the brain. And I don't mean Studio Ghibli. By the way, some of you may have heard Akira, what was his name? Akira Misaki. Or Miyazaki. Akira Miyazaki passed away. Yes, he did write episodes of a lot of anime shows. He is not Hisao Miyazaki from Studio Ghibli. It is not the same person. There are people who are getting confused. That was a complete and utter out of nowhere side note. But yeah, I'm going to be doing the whole countdown. When I reach 1, I do something goofy, and when I can see it on screen, I log out. And that's it. And that's a bye-bye. Alright. So, that's going to be a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. B, a 2, and a 1. Bye-bye.